The Napa Valley estate sparkled under the fading light of dusk, a symphony of elegance and wealth meticulously composed for the occasion. Gabriella Ford had ensured that every detail of their 20th anniversary celebration reflected the success she and Michael had built together. Or so the world believed. A tech mogul with a name that carried weight in every boardroom, Gabriella had spent her life constructing an empire and a marriage that seemed unassailable. Tonight, however, as she stood amidst the glittering crowd of luminaries and well-wishers, a shadow lingered in the corners of her mind. The estate was alive with laughter and the delicate clink of crystal glasses. Guests marveled at the vineyard's expansive beauty, the opulence of the decor, and the artistry of the catered fare. Gabriella moved through the crowd with practiced grace, her every smile calculated to reassure her guests that this night was one of celebration. Yet, beneath her poised exterior, unease churned. Michael, the charming, dependable half of her public image, was behaving unusually, his laugh too quick, his glances at his phone too frequent. Something felt off. She scanned the room, her sharp eyes catching subtle exchanges that others might have missed. Michael was deep in conversation with David Clark, their longtime business partner, while her sister Elena hovered nearby. Gabriella noticed a fleeting glance between David and Elena, a shared look that seemed out of place amidst the festivity. It was quick, almost imperceptible, but enough to ignite Gabriella's instincts. Her mind, conditioned by years of navigating corporate subterfuge, began to piece together an unsettling puzzle. When the toast began, Gabriella forced herself to stand beside Michael, their arms linked for the benefit of the cameras. His words were eloquent, praising her brilliance and resilience, but they rang hollow to her ears. The crowd applauded, raising their glasses to the golden couple, but Gabriella felt the weight of a growing suspicion. She cast another glance toward David and Elena, catching them whispering in the corner of the room. Elena's laugh was too bright, David's hand lingered too long on her arm. Gabriella excused herself under the pretense of checking on the catering. Instead, she retreated to her private study, her sanctuary and war room. She powered up her computer and accessed the secure server where the heart of her company resided. Hours of painstaking analysis had taught her to trust her attention, and tonight it screamed for her attention. Within moments, her worst fears began to materialize. Authorized access logs flagged David's name, a breach into confidential projects that only a handful of trusted executives were privy to. Gabriella's pulse quickened, and then the final blow. Encrypted messages between David and Elena, their content veiled, but the implications unmistakable. Her sister, her confidant, was entwined in something potentially catastrophic. As Gabriella sat in the dim glow of the monitor, her suspicions solidified. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a threat to everything she had built. And yet, Gabriella was not one to crumble. She shut down the computer, her resolve hardening. Tonight, the celebration would continue uninterrupted. But tomorrow, the battle would begin. For the guests, the night carried on as a glittering celebration. For Gabriella, it marked the start of a reckoning. The morning after the celebration dawned crisp and cool, the vineyard blanketed in a mist that softened its grandeur. Gabriella stood on the veranda, a steaming cup of coffee in her hands. The unease from the night before hadn't dissipated. If anything, it had sharpened into something more concrete. An urgency to uncover the truth. She watched as the workers moved methodically among the vines, the rhythm of their labor a stark contrast to the chaotic thoughts racing through her mind. Elena joined her, dressed casually but with the polish that always seemed calculated. Gabriella studied her sister's face, searching for cracks beneath the polished surface. "You disappeared early last night," Elena remarked, her tone light but laced with curiosity. "Just checking on a few things," Gabriella replied, her voice neutral. She gestured toward the vineyard. "It's peaceful out here, isn't it? Quiet enough to think." Elena hesitated, as if unsure how to respond. Gabriella seized the moment. "David seemed quite attentive to you last night. Anything I should know?" The question, delivered with a casual air, made Elena stiffen ever so slightly. "David? No, nothing like that." He was just being polite. Gabriella let the subject drop, but her suspicions deepened. Eleanor was evasive, a trait she'd never mastered, despite her years of trying to play in Gabriella's league. After breakfast, Gabriella retreated to her office, the walls lined with books and awards that chronicled her rise in the tech world. She contacted a private investigator, someone she had worked with before, discreet, thorough, and ruthless when necessary. "Focus on David Clark," she instructed, "and my sister. I want to know everything: emails, phone calls, financial transactions. Leave nothing uncovered." The investigator didn't flinch at the unusual scope of her request. Gabriella's reputation for precision preceded her. Over the next few days, Gabriella maintained an outward calm, attending meetings and fulfilling her obligations as if nothing were amiss. Michael, oblivious to her inner turmoil, appeared to have returned to his usual self, but Gabriella couldn't shake the nagging feeling that his charm masked something more sinister. The investigator's initial findings arrived quicker than expected. Gabriella opened the encrypted file with trembling hands. The data was damning. David's after-hour access to proprietary files had been routed through Elena's credentials. Offshore accounts tied to both of them showed suspicious activity, money trails leading to a consulting firm she had never heard of. The documents painted a picture of betrayal that went beyond familial disloyalty. It was corporate treason. Gabriella's first instinct was to confront them immediately, but she resisted the urge. She knew better than to tip her hand prematurely. Instead, she began to strategize. Her plan needed to be flawless. She began shifting key projects away from David's oversight, masking the changes as routine restructuring. She replaced access codes, ensuring that only her most trusted team members had clearance. Subtle inquiries to Michael's assistant hinted at discrepancies in his schedule that she couldn't yet account for, but made a mental note to investigate. As she pieced together the puzzle, Gabriella realized that the conspiracy ran deeper than she had anticipated. David and Elena's betrayal was more than a personal affront. It was a coordinated attempt to dismantle her empire. In the solitude of her office, Gabriella leaned back in her chair, her gaze fixed on the glowing screen. She felt a pang of sadness. Not for the betrayal itself, but for the illusion she had clung to for too long. Trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. When the door slid shut, Gabriella gasped in relief. But Gabriella was no stranger to adversity. She thrived in the crucible of competition and deceit. This, she decided, would be no different. If they thought they could outmaneuver her, they had sorely underestimated who they were dealing with. As the days passed, Gabriella's operation to expose the conspiracy against her became a masterclass in precision and restraint. Each move was deliberate, designed to gather irrefutable evidence while keeping her adversaries unaware. She worked quietly but tirelessly, assembling a fortress of facts that would withstand any counterattack. One morning she called Elena, feigning the warmth of a sisterly chat. "I've been thinking," Gabriella began, her tone casual. "You've been so generous with your time lately. I'd like to involve you more in the business, maybe give you access to some higher-level projects." The offer was bait, and Eleanor took it eagerly, though she tried to mask her excitement. "That would be amazing, Gabby. You know I've always wanted to do more." Gabriella noted the slight tremor in her sister's voice. It wasn't excitement, it was fear. Fear of what Gabriella might already know. While Elena played the part of the loyal sister, Gabriella knew the truth. The private investigator's latest report revealed that Elena's involvement went beyond David's scheme. Financial documents showed that she had been funneling money into a separate account, likely a personal safety net in case their plot collapsed. At work, Gabriella tightened her grip on David. She orchestrated a series of performance reviews, pulling him from key projects under the guise of addressing inefficiencies. David, a man unused to scrutiny, bristled under the changes, but Gabriella maintained an air of professionalism that left him unable to object. Michael, too, found himself increasingly isolated. Gabriella's subtle inquiries into his whereabouts revealed unexplained gaps in his schedule. Business trips that seemed legitimate were riddled with inconsistencies. Hotel charges that didn't match his itinerary. Receipts for dinners he claimed he hadn't attended. Gabriella's strategy wasn't limited to work. At home, she turned her attention to Michael's phone. One night, as he showered, she unlocked his device using the passcode she had memorized months earlier. She sifted through his messages and emails, her heart sinking as she uncovered the trail of his complicity. Conversations with David confirmed that Michael had been involved in the sale of her proprietary technology, using his charm to disarm any suspicion. One particular exchange made her blood run cold. David: Elena says she can handle Gabriella if she starts digging. You're sure we're covered? Michael: trust me, she doesn't see it coming. This is her blind spot. Family and trust. Let her think we're one big happy team. It was more than a betrayal of her company. It was a betrayal of her marriage, her very sense of stability. Gabriella didn't confront Michael. Not yet. Instead, she deepened her preparations. She contacted her legal team, laying the groundwork for actions that would secure her company's future. She reached out to a cybersecurity firm, ensuring that her servers were impervious to further breaches. By the end of the week, Gabriella was no longer navigating a nebulous suspicion, but a clear and present threat. She had seen the face of her enemies and understood their motives. Now she had to decide when and how to strike. For Gabriella, the question wasn't if she would win, it was how much damage she would inflict on those who had underestimated her. The boardroom was quiet, save for the hum of the air conditioning and the occasional rustle of papers. Gabriella stood at the head of the polished mahogany table, her posture as commanding as ever. Around her sat the members of her executive team, including David Clark, who appeared oblivious to the storm about to descend. Elena was there too, invited under the pretense of a new family initiative Gabriella wanted to discuss. I wasn't aware. Michael arrived late, his easy smile faltering when he saw Gabriella's steely expression. Thank you all for coming, Gabriella began, her tone cool but firm. I have some critical updates regarding the future of Ford Innovations. She clicked a remote and the projector displayed a series of financial records on the screen. Gabriella moved through the slides with precision, her narrative exposing a pattern of fraud and betrayal that grew more damning with each click. Offshore accounts linked to David, unauthorized access logs showing Eleanor's complicity, payments routed through shell companies that traced back to her husband. The room was silent, the gravity of the evidence rendering everyone speechless. Gabriella turned to David first. David, I trusted you as a partner and a friend. You abused that trust to undermine this company and sell its secrets. She shifted her gaze to Elena, whose face had gone pale. And you, my own sister, aligned yourself with him? Did you think I wouldn't notice? Elena stammered. Gabby, it's not what it looks like. Gabriella cut her off. Spare me. I've read the messages, traced the money. You betrayed not just me, but every employee whose livelihoods depend on this company. Then she turned to Michael, her voice quieter but no less sharp. And you, the man I built a life with, plotted to dismantle everything we created together. Was it greed? Resentment? Or was it just easier to steal from me than to build something of your own? Michael opened his mouth, but Gabriella held up a hand. Don't bother. I'm not here for explanations. I'm here to inform you all of the consequences. She gestured to the door, and two lawyers entered, carrying folders brimming with legal documents. David, you'll find the evidence of your crimes filed neatly in this folder. I've already contacted the authorities. I expect you'll be receiving a formal visit shortly. David's face crumbled as the implications sank in. Elena looked stricken, but Gabriella was unrelenting. You'll find your name removed from every account and asset. I've also taken the liberty of ensuring that any future employment you seek will come with an asterisk. Corporate espionage doesn't look good on a resume. Finally, she faced Michael. Your name is on these documents as well. I suggest you prepare for what's coming. Divorce is the least of your worries. I'm not getting divorced, Michael defended. The meeting ended with Gabriella standing victorious, her betrayers left to grapple with the ruins of their schemes. But she wasn't done yet. As they left the room, a security team escorted David and Elena to waiting cars, ensuring they wouldn't have the chance to escape accountability. Gabriella stayed behind, gazing out the window. The city stretched before her, a testament to her vision and determination. She knew the battle wasn't entirely over. The next steps would require resolve, but if her enemies thought they had broken her, they had only strengthened her resolve. "What inspires you, sire?" she asked. In the distance, her phone buzzed with a message. It was from her investigator. "Anonymous tip, there's more. Contact me immediately." Gabriella smiled grimly. If there was more to uncover, she was ready. The evening air was crisp, carrying with it the scent of autumn leaves and the faint aroma of grapes ripening on the vines. Gabriella stood on the terrace of her Napa Valley estate, a glass of wine in her hand. The estate had always been a symbol of success, a sprawling testament to her years of relentless effort and ambition. Tonight, though, it felt different. The cracks in her life had been laid bare, and while she had acted decisively, the emotional cost lingered like a shadow. Her phone buzzed on the table behind her. She glanced at it, a message from her legal team confirming that the charges against David and Elena had been filed. Michael had also been served divorce papers earlier that day. Despite the resolution of her immediate challenges, a gnawing sense of unease remained. The betrayal hadn't just threatened her company, it had eroded something fundamental. Her trust in those closest to her. Gabrielle swirled the wine in her glass, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She replayed the events of the past weeks, wondering if there had been signs she had missed. How had she allowed her sister, her husband, and her trusted business partner to get so close, only to turn against her? Her mind cycled through moments of doubt and clarity, questioning her instincts and the boundaries she had set or failed to set. A faint sound drew her attention. Turning, she saw Eleanor standing at the edge of the terrace, flanked by 2 security guards. Gabriella had allowed her sister to stay on the estate temporarily, though they hadn't spoken since the confrontation. "Gabby," Elena began, her voice soft and tentative. "Can we talk?" Gabriella studied her sister for a moment, weighing her words. She gestured for the guards to leave, but remained standing, her demeanor unreadable. "I don't know what to say," Elena continued, her voice trembling. Everything we did, it was a mistake. I let David convince me it was harmless at first. Then it spiraled, and I didn't know how to stop." Gabriella's expression didn't waver. "You didn't know how to stop," she echoed. "That's your defense. You could have come to me. Instead, you chose to exploit my trust." Tears welled in Elena's eyes. "I was jealous, okay? You've always been the successful one, the perfect one, and I let that jealousy consume me. I'm sorry, Gabby. Truly." Gabriella exhaled slowly. "I don't know if I'll ever forgive you, Elena. Not because of the money, or even the corporate betrayal, but because you used our bond, our family, as a weapon. That's something I can't just move past." As Elena retreated, Gabriella returned to her solitude. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from her investigator. Little strip of paper, new developments, potential third party involved, call ASAP. Gabriella stared at the message, her jaw tightening. So, the game wasn't over. There were still layers to peel back, new enemies to uncover. She finished her wine, set the glass down, and made the call. As the investigator's voice came through the line, detailing a fresh twist in the conspiracy, Gabriella felt a surge of determination. Betrayal had scarred her, but it had also sharpened her resolve. If they thought they could break her, they had underestimated her once again. "Exercising my mind upon this planet." Harry concentrated. He stepped back inside, closing the terrace doors behind her. In the quiet of her study, she began preparing for the next battle. The fractured facade of her life might never be whole again, but Gabriella Ford wasn't someone who needed perfection. She only needed control.